What's going on, my fellow A+? Welcome back once again to a brand new episode. It is I, your host, as always, Adam Perez, guys. Back once again with a brand new episode today as we're set to head and celebrate the return of Marvel Studios is in fact back. We've been waiting for the longest time to actually get some brand new content for them. Today is in fact the day. If you have Disney Plus for yourselves, WandaVision has in fact dropped episodes 1 and 2 back to back to go ahead and start off this series. We're here to certainly go ahead and break it down and discuss it all for you guys. So we will be getting nitty gritty into it, some spoilers here and there. So if you don't want to hear spoilers, certainly put on your earmuffs today, but we're definitely going to be talking about it, and it's not just myself. No, we've got at least one other half of the team here joining us here today. What's going on? It's certainly good to see.
Good to be back. You know, I gotta say, it's hilarious what you mentioned about it being like the first Marvel bit of content that we've gotten in a long time, because it's really hasn't been that long when you think about like in terms of other movie franchises, like waiting a year to get like a sequel or like, you know, a spinoff of something else. It's usually kind of just the standard, but when it comes to Marvel, we've gone so attached to getting like 2 or 3 different projects a year that it's funny to think about how just waiting 1 year for a television show to come out feels like such a long time now.
Well, that's they spoiled us, man. You know, they spoiled us really good, giving us all these movies sort of back to back every year. I mean, goodness, we had like, you know, we were spoiled with like 2 or 3 Marvel movies here or there, and then now all of a sudden, because of the pandemic and whatnot, it's just like nothing forever. It's just been super silent. So I'm so glad that Marvel is back. They've got a plethora of things on their slate when it comes to this upcoming phase of theirs. WandaVision certainly is their first. Now, it originally wasn't scheduled to be their first. They were supposed to go ahead and drop Falcon and Winter Soldier, but they did have some delays in their own shooting, if you will, as well. So yeah, WandaVision certainly gets to be the first up. And let me ask you, Stewart, right off the bat, man, I mean, based off of the fact that this is our first Disney Plus sort of series, our first return to the MCU, did you think it was a nice little jumping off point, or did you feel like maybe something should have came before it?
In a way, oh shoot, I'm sorry, I don't know if you hear the staticky noise. I'm trying to fix that. I apologize for that.
Oh, you're good.
Okay, cool. So right off the bat, yes, I thought it was a really interesting way to start out like this new phase of Marvel movies. I think it's definitely not how I would have done it, not in a bad way, but more of, you know, obviously they couldn't predict the pandemic or anything like that, but obviously it is kind of funny how we've gone so long without like a new Marvel movie or a new or without, you know, the MCU television show. Like obviously we had Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but with all that being said, it is kind of interesting that our first time diving back into Marvel is when Marvel is for the first time, it feels like really breaking their mold of like how they usually tell their stories. And I don't mean like in the fact of this being a television show, but I mean more in the fact of it not being the traditional, you know, the traditional structure that we're used to in Marvel. Like this starts out with a lot of mystery behind it because we're just like thrown right into this new reality that we know nothing about. We don't know if this is a fully fictional reality that doesn't actually exist within the MCU, or if it's like this fully fictional reality that Wanda's created that's like merging within the actual universe. And, you know, so it is kind of an interesting way to start out a new franchise. I don't know if I would have done it myself, but I'm really glad they did.
Yeah, you know, we've talked before about the idea of how Marvel certainly enjoys taking its risks, you know, with like Thor, Guardians of the Galaxy and things like that, you know, exploring different aspect of, you know, not only their world, but different genres and things like that. Marvel does do a pretty good job when it comes to having to break the mold, like you said. So for me, it definitely felt like for Marvel to use this as their launching point of their phase now, it definitely felt like a very risky certainly go about doing it. But if you ask me, man, I do think that it certainly paid off. Now, it is one of those things where because it is risky, I don't necessarily know how people are being receptive of it, right? Like when I had Rotten Tomatoes, it's like at a 90% score or something like that. Last time I checked, I don't know if it's being that well received amongst fans or not. I honestly don't know. I haven't really been keeping my ear very close. But it's certainly a risky opportunity for them here. But I got to tell you, for me, it certainly paid off. I certainly really enjoyed it. Like you said, I don't necessarily know if this would have been the the first show that I would have certainly launched off with. I would probably have gotten more people used to the idea of us doing some Disney series, or at least maybe one prior to this, because like the idea of doing the Falcon and Winter Soldier, I thought was a really great sort of, maybe would have been a really great first leap, and then maybe WandaVision. But regardless, I really love what they've been able to do. I mean, the fact that it feels so unique. They really are doing something that I've never really seen them do before in Marvel Studios, and that's what they've been bragging about. And so it's been really to kind of see them actually kind of put that to the test here. I mean, I love just getting to go from sort of sitcom level to, especially as we get into like episode 2, you definitely start seeing them kind of cut into a little bit more of a cinematic feel. Just the idea of going outside of these sets, right, and going outside the houses and walking down the block and things like that. It definitely feels like it kind of grows outside of just the sitcom element a little bit, and I think it's gonna be something really special, man. I loved what I saw.
Oh yeah, definitely. One thing I'm so glad you kind of brought up like the cinematic feel to it, because that was one thing I absolutely loved about the format of the show, is especially when you look at the very first episode, one of the most clever camera tricks I think they use is that we see the entire time watching it that it's filmed the exact same way they filmed like an old school sitcom type of setting for the most part, because it's multiple cameras and it seems like it's all one take essentially. I could be wrong about that. But it looks like they filmed it the way you would a sitcom. You have multiple cameras and you just do one long take. The only time they broke that was like at the very end of the episode when you had Vision's boss like choking on a roll, and that's when reality started to break, and then suddenly the camera angles that you get aren't the traditional sitcom camera angles. You get you get a cinematic view of it, and I like that. I like how the kind of the cameras seem to change anytime reality starts to kind of break, or probably glimpses of actual reality start to trinkle into it. They represent that by having the camera kind of break what they normally would do in a sitcom format.
And that's one of the things that I loved about this show too, was the idea they didn't necessarily give you all sitcom. Like, I think going into this episode, one of the things that we had talked about prior on A+ Heroes, what was the format of this series going to be, right? We know that they were going to be leaning very sitcom heavy. And so one of the things that we proposed was, well, maybe that's how we're going to start off this show, like literally minute kind of episodes to kind of get you into that kind of sitcom. What I certainly wasn't expecting was the idea of like in the middle of these sitcom format episodes that they really start kind of cutting into a more drama-based cinematic kind of feature. And I love just to be able to have that sort of charming, nostalgic, humorous factor about the show. But then when they really need to get into like their Marvel bag, then they just do it so seamlessly. And I just think it's a very unique way of telling the story. And yeah, man, I found this series to be just as can be, to be perfectly honest with you. What did you think?
Oh yeah, no, I would fully 100% agree with that for sure. And again, it kind of goes into the way they do it. So what I had two worries going into the show. It would be either one, that the mystery that they made it seemed like they were going to have with all the trailers that were released. I was worried that they were going to tell us right off the bat what was actually going on, and then suddenly, it'd be kind of one of those things of, oh, well, this is less cool now that we know the full situation. I'm glad they didn't do that. And then the other thing I was worried about is if they were going to play it straight like they kind of did with this first episode, I kept thinking, oh man, I feel like as cool as this is, as creative as it is, the joke's going to get old if they're not careful. And because of how cleverly they were able to sprinkle in the bits of reality into this sitcom format, and because the first episode was extremely short, only being about, I want to say, like 21 minutes altogether, I think that really helps. So you never got annoyed by how long the joke kept going on for. Because I feel like pacing wise, they did it perfectly with the first episode, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And then you can see going into the second one how they do kind of expand upon what they kind of gave you with the first one, starting to introduce other characters, having her actually leave from her home, going over to other places, right? They're really, when they did the talent show or whatever, the showcase show that they were doing at the park and things like that, when their magician skit. The idea that they are kind of expanding a little bit more outside of the sitcom realm. I really enjoyed it, man. I honestly had a fantastic time. And for me, I'd be interested to see what eras they start visiting definitely going forward when it comes to season 3, because now we've got some color at the end of season 2, at the end of episode 2. So that was pretty neat. I will say some standouts to me. Listen, Elizabeth Olsen, I think, just fits that sort of sitcom classic vibe so incredibly well. But you know who the major standout to me was? Paul, man. I love Paul Bettany. For me, it was just a really great a breath of like just fresh air of having Vision with some personality. You know, it felt very much like Paul Bettany was able to be himself a little bit, not as stoic as android-like as Vision certainly is. So to kind of see that other side of Vision playing up their roles in this world, I really loved it. He was a huge standout to me, and I think the humor in here was certainly spot on. I mean, just the classic, like I said, classic sitcom humor, if you will. But I just thought it was just done so so beautifully. Honestly, what did you think about some of the performances in here? Any standouts to you?
Man, I need a list here because one thing I loved about both of them, both Vision and Wanda in this whole series, is especially when you, again, going back to the first episode, of course it was there in the second episode too, but with the first episode specifically, it's like you take a situation that really isn't that stressful, but because they're, you know, they feel so out of place, and because you got Wanda who's trying to like hold reality together, and you got Vision who I don't even know if it's like actually Vision or if it's just Wanda's like depiction of Vision. But the fact that they're taking like such a simple premise, but then like over exaggerating it as if this is like the most stressful situation. Oh, boss is coming over for dinner. It has to be perfect. The way they go so insane with such a simple thing that shouldn't even be that like big of a deal. You know, it definitely felt like they nailed the feel of like both like the two shows. I feel like they were really going for was the whole I Love Lucy and Bewitched feel. And I think they nailed that perfectly with just like, oh, you know, it's simple. Boss is coming over to dinner, and rather than just, you know, being able to talk it over and like, okay, so why don't we just like cook a simple meal or something? It's like, oh no, he's coming over for dinner. What are we gonna do? Yeah.
I definitely did love that for sure, because it was one of those things where you know, sometimes when I saw them in this show, like you said, the idea of them over exaggerating the idea of like having to cook something as small as like a little bit of a dinner, you know, I kind of wonder if they are aware that something is up. Like there are hints here where Vision, like they're fully aware of, like, he knows that he's an android, so he played up the part of trying to kind of hide from other people, but there's also a part of him that does recognize that something is wrong. Like they clearly know that something is wrong in here and something's off. So I'm wondering if Vision is playing along with this entire time, or if he's just as lost as anybody else. And the only reason why I say that is when you go to episode 1 and they're sitting at the dinner table and the boss starts to choke, right? Nobody helps the guy. So he's sitting there and choke. And then shout out also goes out to Deborah Roop, who played Mrs. Hart in here from the 70s show. I honestly didn't even know she was going to be in here, but the fact that she was, I absolutely loved it. But you know, when he starts choking, she's saying, "Stop it, stop it." I'm thinking, referencing him because talking to her husband because she thinks that he's joking, right? But then you get to see, and she's literally looking at Wanda, telling her, "Stop it, stop it, stop it," like over and over again, with the big old smirk on her face. If you look at Vision is looking at Wanda, trying to figure out, are you going to do something? Are you going to let me do something? And he doesn't move until she gives permission to do so. And it almost feels like he knows he's kind of trapped in the world and that something's wrong with her, but also trying not to make it that obvious to where maybe if she realized that she's calling all this, she might go crazy. Like, I don't know. He just feels like he's a little bit worried or concerned about trying to pull her out of whatever's kind of going on with her right now. I don't really know the situation, but I think that's what I love about this series is that despite the sitcom theme and things like that, there's a really lot of mystery involved in this in this show so far.
Mhm. Definitely. But I think what it is, to me, the way that whole scene came off is that it's Wanda writing the reality as it goes along. Like I don't think Vision even knows that there's something wrong with reality. I think he believes that it just fits into this mysterious world that he's just now learning about. Like the whole thing about him going to work and not even understanding what he does at his job, probably one of the funniest premises. But, and that whole thing of him not being sure what he's supposed to do when he's choking. And, he has to wait until Wanda looks at him and says, do something, Vision, or help him. To me, it kind of came off as like he himself doesn't fully understand the world that they're living in. And it could be that he's like literally reborn as a whole new android, but this reality is the only reality that he knows. He probably has no memory of his previous life. Whereas it feels to me like Wanda does. Like she actually remembers everything, but she is using this new reality that she's created as an escape from that reality, and she's kind of, like I mentioned, like writing as she goes along with this new reality.
It's definitely possible for sure. Because I mean, if you look at the end of episode number 2, when she winds up seeing the beekeeper coming out of the sewer, she kind of rewrites history, if you will, right? Kind of rewinds time and kind of goes back to that perfect moment between her and Vision, sort of thing. And he doesn't even question it. Sort of at all. So I definitely think she certainly has a huge control over what's going on now. Whether or not she even I don't know, man. There definitely seems like a disconnect. Like I don't even know if she's fully aware that she's doing it, even though there are times that she does come across like she does know what she's doing. You know what I mean? Like because when she's even I think feel like she questions some things that are happening in their that they're living in. I feel like she certainly questions things just as much as Vision does from time to time. Like the whole idea of trying to figure out what that particular date meant, right? Like there are certainly lapses in the memory or aspects about them that they certainly have no idea what's going on. So I'll be fascinated to see how it all unfolds. But there's a huge mystery involved, and I'm certainly here for it. Also, we wind up getting Catherine Hahn, who I honestly thought was the perfect fit for the neighbor next door, if you will. Absolutely loved her chemistry with Elizabeth Olsen in here, and we finally get the opportunity to see Teyana Paris, a Monica Rambeau in here as Geraldine as well, making their debut in the MCU too.
Yeah, what I really loved about the neighbor specifically, I loved how her first entrance is literally it's something that you see in a lot of sitcoms, and it's just, to me, it's always like one of the funniest things because even with people that I'm really close to, I usually give a knock on the door if I'm ever visiting someone to indicate that I'm there. I love how we're like in this world and you got this neighbor who like has literally never met Wanda before, and she just invites herself in the very first moment like she sees her, and that just becomes like her thing. Like anytime she feels like just dropping by, she doesn't even bother to knock. She just drops right on in. Something that you see a lot of in old school sitcoms. And I find that like hilarious that they brought that back, and the whole thing, like no one even like kind of brings that up too.
Oh, yeah, nobody even bats an eye. It's so natural back in the day, I'm sure. A couple of quick comments here. This is from CO2000. He says the first 2 episodes are so good. Yeah, I definitely agree, man. I certainly had a blast watching them. Again, I think there's just a great level of charmingness to this season, but also just a level of great humor and great mystery. I really love what Marvel's kind of putting together here for us. Doomsday says, hey, I got to say, I'm really impressed that Marvel was able to make a TV show that awesome. I mean, we're only literally 2 episodes in. I don't even know how many episodes are supposed to be in this season. I think maybe 10? Could be wrong. 9 episodes. That's such an odd number to have. 9 episodes. I'm not a fan of 9 episodes. I'm not a fan of odd numbers in general, I should say. So give me either 10, man. I'll take the 10. But yeah, if 9's all we have to deal with, I'll be interested to see how they're going to go, like what the pacing of the show is going to be, because we clearly see in episode number 3 we're going to be getting some color added. So I'm wondering if episodes 3 and 4 are going to be like brand new eras of television that they wind up sort of representing. You also picked up on the idea that there were full sword symbols that were showcased. Some of the I mean, I feel like you almost had to look for it a little bit, but you wind up catching a symbol pop up, right?
Yeah, because there was one. I think you mentioned one that appeared on the helicopter, and then the first one I think that you saw was when at the very end of the first episode they were like zooming out slowly, and then you see it's all being monitored on a television screen. And I believe on the left there was like a logo that was hanging there that was also once again the sword symbol. So I definitely think they that sword is in one way, shape, or form going to play a huge part in this episode, which surprised me because I didn't think we'd be seeing anything from Sword for at least some time, like maybe not until the Nick Fury Marvel TV show that's coming. But to get it this early really gets me excited because I feel like there's definitely some real big secret plan that Kevin Feige has going on with the MCU that he's been doing such a great job of keeping on the down low so far.
And speaking of Sword, considering that seems to be the agency that we're going to be dealing with in this season, I am kind of curious how big of an industry, like how big of an agency they are right now, right? Like they could be pretty minuscule in regards to the Marvel Cinematic Universe at this point in time, but so exactly how big they are, I believe. Monica is actually a member of Sword, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong though, but I will say this, Stuart. I have a feeling, we in episode 2 we started hearing all those booms in the very beginning, and then towards the episode, I think that's where she discovered not only the helicopter, but she also discovered the beekeeper guy coming out of the sewer after she winded up hearing that another booming noise. I'm wondering if that's Wanda sending things in or out, or if I'm wondering if that's Sword trying to send people in or out of whatever this kind of reality is that Wanda's kind of creating. So do you think that that's a Sword that's doing that, or do you think that's Wanda that's doing that?
I think it's Sword would be the most likely answer that they're sending Sword agents in. But like as soon as they get sent in, they essentially then become part of that reality. And I think we're going to see that with quite a few of the characters that are already inside the world. Like it's going to be a mixture of people that are created purely from Wanda's imagination, and then people that are actually meant to be agents of Sword. But the issue is once they get sent in, then suddenly their memory of who they are is gone, and they are now like part of this new like sitcom world.
And I'm also wondering if this is an actual town that she's controlled over. Like, I'm wondering if these people that we see are they Sword agents, or are these people that have been inside like this neighborhood, and Wanda just kind of took them over and you are using them as like chess pieces in her world, right? Because when you look at Dottie, Dottie has a break of reality also. She winds up breaking the glass in her hand. You see the blood on her hand and things like that, and she kind of feels like she comes out of this haze or like this like this thing of hypnosis, asking Wanda who she is or where she's, that type of thing. So I feel like Wanda's either manipulating people that are being brought in to fit this world, or she's manipulating the people of this particular town that they're in to kind of play her chess pieces on this board a little bit. Or like I said, maybe she's creating these people, but it's just like they're real people who are being controlled at times, I feel like.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, especially with some of the ways that they'll react to certain situations, like with I forgot. Oh, Mrs. Hart. Or I'm just gonna call her Kitty from that '70s show.
Right.
The way like she was kind of reacting to her husband choking, and then looking directly at Wanda saying, "Stop it, stop it." I feel like that was probably part of her like actual personality trying to take over herself, trying to convince, hey, someone is like actually dying here. Please don't let that happen. But again, it's something that can only like come out in extreme circumstances.
And isn't that just creepy? Like there's like a creepy vibe that I wind up getting at the end of episode 1. Like, what is Wanda doing, man? Like yeah, man. I love the greeting too. When she was up behind homeboy, Mr. Hart, and she's like, "Oh," and then Vision comes in. He's like, "Oh, that's her Sokovian greeting," or something like that. I thought that was a great outlook.
Yeah, it's that whole thing in a lot of, I say sitcoms, but you know what? A lot of television shows do this where you'll have characters having to lie to cover something up. And, as an audience member watching that, most of the time you're just like, why didn't they just tell him the truth? Why didn't she just go, "Oh, I thought you were my husband. My bad, my mistake. Accidents happen because we are all people."
Yeah, I mean, sitcoms always tend to have those like really quirky situations. You know, it's never
Oh
like
yeah.
earth shattering or it's going to change your life forever. It's always like really awkward situation you got to get yourself out of sometimes. Let's see here. We got Isaiah Rodriguez in the house. Appreciate you coming through, Isaiah. And Billy, what's up, Billy? She says, watched episodes 1 and 2 of WandaVision. It was really awesome. My favorite scene watching Wanda cook. You know, I will say this. The one thing that made me laugh is just like, why don't you just create dinner? Like you're able to do all this stuff, right? You can rewind time, broken dishes that you've messed up. You can float things around. You trying to tell me you can't just? I mean, she literally cooked her chicken too much and then reverted it back to eggs. So I'm just thinking, why can't you just boom? And like, why are you stressing? Like you said, Stuart, right? Like, why are you stressing over this situation where you can snap your fingers and everything will be fine?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And speaking of snapping, so I did watch a couple of other YouTubers like talking about it, and one thing that kind of got brought up was the whole thing of shoot, I completely forgot the neighbor's name, but like when she walks into the kitchen and says, you know, I can help you prep dinner and it'll be done in a snap. And there was something about the way she said snap and the way she looked at Wanda when saying it, where it almost felt like she was kind of referencing the Thanos snap at the end of Infinity War. You know, the moment where Wanda truly lost everything.
I mean, I've been seeing a couple people talk about like their theories and stuff. Also going on, I've even heard the idea that Mephisto is that they think people think he's the main villain because of the fact that like her Catherine, was it Catherine Hoggs? Catherine Hans, whatever the neighbor's name. I can't remember her name now. The neighbor's name. She mentioned the idea of like she dropped the term like devil a couple times in the second season, in the second episode.
Oh, yeah.
And so people are thinking that like maybe her husband is Mephisto or something like that. I don't know. People are just that's just something I wanted to read on Twitter, honestly. So just some fan theories. I have no idea.
Honestly, this does feel like the type of show that once it all comes out, you're going to want to rewatch it. And then there's going to be like subtle hints and Easter eggs that you didn't get before because you didn't know where it was going. But now that you know where it's going, you're going to notice like a lot more foreshadowing that you never thought of. So I could totally see that being one of the things for sure.
Yeah, like I said, when I watched it, I was pretty much just watching it, just falling in love with the charming sitcom and the moral aspects of it. But as far as like keeping my eyes open for like Easter eggs and things, you know, in the background and stuff like that, I honestly didn't. So I probably will have to kind of go through these episodes one or two more times and kind of see just a little things that you can kind of find. But I was so focused on the story, I wasn't even paying attention to the other things. But considering the fact that this is a Wanda sort of reality that she's creating, I'm pretty sure there's a plethora of little things in the background for like out.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But overall, man, I really enjoyed these first two episodes. I can see how they could probably maybe hit some people wrong, because you know, for me, I think the sitcom vibe, just considering the fact of how old I am, you know, I just turned 38. So while I wasn't around for really black and white TV, you know, color was certainly out by then. Trust me when I say black and white TV was certainly still on television, like, you know, being reruns or whatever the case may be, or you know, being on certain television stations to kind of re the thing. But for me, it definitely kind of give me a sense of nostalgia, kind of growing up as a kid a little bit, watching these I Love Lucy shows and Bewitched, which, mind you, love the theme of this show. I thought it was great opening sequences also for Wanda, you know, Vision holding Wanda and trying to bring her into the house. I thought that was a cool opening. And then the cartoon opening that we wind up getting for episode 2. I'm kind of wondering if we're going to get different openings for different like decades or sitcoms. Like if I can get me a Full House WandaVision theme, I would honestly love to see something like that. Do you think they'll switch up the entrances, the openings, since they've done it twice already?
Oh yeah, I have no doubt. Because yeah, now that we are in a color, you know, it's a color TV now. It would be really weird if they opened up the next episode with again a black and white opening. It kind of would have to be a new one to fit that decade. So I have no doubt that's probably what they're doing with it.
Yeah, I am wondering what show they'll take inspiration from next time. But I really do appreciate the homage to classic television in here, and being able to kind of switch it up with some drama and mystery from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So anything about this that you were a big fan of that you could have done with, honestly?
Sorry, you kind of broke up there. What was the question?
No, I was just saying, was there anything out of this episode, or these two episodes, that you necessarily weren't the biggest fan of, or kind of hit you the wrong way? Or were you pretty impressed for the most part? Like, I'm trying to think of some stuff. I mean,
man, I really can't say, because everything. Yeah, no, I feel like everything that was in these episodes, and I think it helps because of their short runtime, every scene felt like it had a purpose. And that's really impressive to do. And I think that's one of the things that helps with the Disney Plus television shows, is with them not having to worry about being a specific amount of time. That we don't have to worry about episodes being padded or episodes being too rushed. It really just feels like episodes are as long as they needed to be. And because of that, I don't think there was a single thing in these two episodes that I would have changed per se. Maybe because they kind of did it with episode 2, and maybe they'll do it more and more, like as the show goes on, maybe sprinkle in a few more hints at something else kind of going on in the within this fake reality, because I do feel like the sprinkles of hints in the second episode were a little too far in between at times. But like with the first episode, it didn't bother me because they were just introducing you to this world and they wanted you to ask questions. So I feel like for the second episode, maybe they should have followed it up by giving you a few more sprinkles of hints, you know?
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that. And I do think that they probably will. I think as we get further into the season, the episodes will expand a little bit more, just, lengthwise. So they'll probably have a little bit more time to kind of explore not only just Wanda's world, but also maybe what's on the outside at some particular point in time. So I definitely agree with you. I think these first two episodes were a really great focus of what they wanted to certainly pay attention to when it comes to the sitcom aspect. But I definitely do see them expanding upon that and opening up this world a little bit more. So yeah, with you too, man, isn't there really not much that I can kind of gripe about or nitpick in here? Outside of the first two episodes, I thought the lengths of the episode, while most times I feel like if it was a Mandalorian episode or any other episode, I probably would bitch about it or something like that. But considering I can tell what Marvel is certainly going for, I love the fact that they are keeping the episodes short, concise, exactly how they certainly mean for them to go, and hopefully will continue to expand. So I really like what I saw, man. I really don't have too many complaints, honestly.
Yeah, definitely.
But listen, guys, at the end of the day, though, we definitely want to know your thoughts. What stood out to you for episodes number 1 and 2 of WandaVision? We definitely want to know your thoughts. Again, these are just our A+ opinions, but we certainly want to go ahead and know yours. And as always, guys, we certainly will be back every Friday, probably around 7 o'clock Central Time, to go ahead and break down these particular episodes for you guys. So if you're looking for a home for your WandaVision reviews, this is certainly the place, and your other Marvel cinematic universe shows as well. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button if you love the content, guys, and definitely follow us on social media. Stuart, if people want to go ahead and reach out to you, sir, where can they find you?
You guys can find me at TurboStew01 on Twitter. You guys can also follow me here at A+ Hero Report and on A+ More Phenomenal, where I do my Common Writer reviews.
Awesome, Stuart. Thank you very much for certainly joining me, man. I know Indy was trying to join up with us, but I believe they have a blizzard out there where he's at, so wasn't able to make it home on time. But as of right now, I mean, for the most part, we probably will have 3 people doing these WandaVision shows for you, or some people coming in and out as we go through this entire season. So it should certainly be fun getting everybody's point of view of this show. But other than that, guys, that's going to go ahead and do it for us. If you want to follow us on social media right here at A+ Opinions, you can clearly follow us on our main Facebook page, which is our main hub. You can also find us on Twitter, which we're very active on, along with Instagram and Twitch for you gamers as well. But other than that, guys, that's going to do it for us here today. So thank you very much for joining us. Do us a big favor, though. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and as always, keep it A+. We'll talk to you later. Bye.